Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right, here we go. Oh my gosh. I am so excited. I'm so prepared. I've got the water. I've got the Celsius going on.
Oh, okay. You're a Celsius drinker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, on occasion when you have a really badass podcast guest, you just need to bring it.
You flatter me. You flatter me. I actually don't drink much caffeine. So it's like when I do drink a Celsius or matcha, those are usually my drinks of choice. I am like off the walls, ready to go. So
Okay. Fantastic. It's like, let's make this thing happen. Well, who is this mystery voice that's talking in the background in everyone's eardrums right now? Well, let me tell you about it. But first of all, how does someone even get a 4.56 GPA in school? I don't know, but you probably are pretty smart, or maybe you know how to break all the rules. It's probably both with a guest today. She's a marketing leader, thought leader, podcaster, creative, and I'd probably add disruptor to this. And I think this is going to start even with the first question. She was once a lifeguard saving kids, and now she keeps a watch over campaigns, host and producer of Retention Chronicles, the pod, head of marketing at Malomo, Mariah Parsons. Welcome to the show.
thank you so much. Like I knew that you were going to do, you crushed that way better. And you definitely pulled out some fun facts, which I was ready for, but I wasn't quite ready for that to be seamlessly blended into my bio. So great job. You've already got me excited for this. If I could have, been excited, been more excited. So thank you. Happy to be here. It is going to be a great time. Can't wait to smash some of those myths. But yes, it has been quite a journey to be here. I've done a lot of different things, like you mentioned, being a lifeguard. I'm so shocked you pulled up my GPA.
Well, we had to call your high school to find that out.
Oh, yeah. The high school records. Yep. Can't get that high of a GPA in college, nor did I have it.
Well, you balanced it out, right? You had extra in high school, and you matched
Yes.
the
Yeah,
other side.
exactly. It
Yeah,
carries
yeah,
over, right? That's what I thought.
yeah.
And I won't disclose if it was, some studies or some breaking of rules that got me there, but
Yes, you
landed
have to
here.
leave it a mystery.
Yes, yes.
So, well, I gotta hand you something. It's heavy, but obviously you work out. So here it comes. All right. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, here you go.
Oh, wow. Oh my
You
God.
got
Thank
it?
you.
You
Yep,
grab it?
I have it.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you. Thank you.
Excellent. Take Thor's hammer, smash for me.
Mjolnir, yeah.
Yeah, it's the actual one too. So, this is not a plastic imitation from Toys R Us. This is the real deal.
Wow, wow.
Take that hammer, smash for me some kind of marketing myth, a bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Yes. So the myth I'm going to be smashing is that there really isn't any generalizations that you can make in marketing that I believe work for everyone. So I'm kind of flipping it on its head for you and everything that you do in this podcast. And I think it'll be fun. So a little bit of background in terms of how I think about marketing, especially trying to work with a small marketing team. Little bit of background. Currently, it is just myself that is the internal marketer at Malomo. And then we have 2 consultants. So we have a lot to get done with a small team. And I started catching on to the notion that any marketing initiative, any marketing campaign that works for one company, one brand, doesn't always work for the other, right? And I think that won't come as much of a shock to many marketers. But I think a lot of the times we're all trying to make sense of what is working for other people and how can we apply it to our companies. And I think that's where the misconception and the stress comes from, because we're trying to take a mold and squeeze it into what our dynamics are, what our setup is with different resources, with a different team, with a different customer altogether. And I think it's really easy, especially now in the age of the internet, to be able to want to hop on to a trend, or want to, you see a competitor or you see someone else in your space do something. You're like, I want to do that. So the natural instinct as a human is to say, okay, copy and paste and try and do the same thing or try and beat them at their own game, right? But I've seen just from the customers that we work with, because we're a B2B tech SaaS company. So we work with a lot of different brands who are selling to consumers and then work with a lot of other partners in the Shopify space. I've just realized over the past couple of years, the marketing campaigns that stand out is when someone knows exactly how to talk to their customer, but does it tweaks it and does it in a different way every time. So that's my myth that I'm going to smash, is that you really can't make any generalizations as much as we want to. Like, I don't think there's anything in the marketing world that I would say like, that's so stupid. I don't believe in that wholeheartedly, because even if it works for, or if it didn't work for another company, it could work for us, even if we just tweak it, or if we take, a version of that, or if you do it even in different time spans, right? Like, we all saw what the pandemic did to marketing. I think it's introducing a lot of creativity, because under that stress, we had to be creative. But now we're seeing maybe a backswing back into some more traditional marketing, because, e-commerce, specifically my industry, and just in whole, everyone living online is becoming very saturated. So there's this swing into traditional marketing. So maybe marketers 10 years ago would have said, okay, online marketing is never going to work. Now we're wholly dependent on it, right? So that's kind of where I get this idea, this myth that I am going to claim as my own, but I know there's other marketers who join me in that. Generalizations, there's no perfect way to do one thing for one specific company at a certain time. So it is a little bit uncomfortable, because you want to make those generalizations, but I can't get on that bandwagon, Casey. I just can't.
Well, welcome everyone to the Nihilistic Marketing Society's first annual meeting. Um, I guess that's the episode. We're done.
We're done. Oh, that's it? Okay, great. That was an easy one.
We're good. You're good on your hard stop. Don't have to worry about it.
Okay, wonderful. I'll get to my next meeting. That's it.
Excellent. Hey, got you some time back in your day. Thank you all for joining the Hardcore Marketing Show. We'll see you all next time.
Love it.
But okay, so if you can't generalize, then is it just pointless to go to a conference? Is it pointless to listen to a pod other than two really funny people?
Yeah, exactly. This specific pod. Please listen to it. Yeah, great question. So when I talk with others in the space about this idea of where are we going if we can't make these generalizations, if we can't always say, and right, I say this loosely because we're on a podcast and we can't get into the nitty gritty of it for hours and hours, unless, we want to cancel our meetings and do that. So
I've got gigabytes of storage over here. I mean, this is like cloud recording too. We could probably, make it like a 24-hour stream. Are you prepared for that? Yeah,
I am. I'll just go grab I'll go grab some matcha, or I'll go
get a granola bar.
Yeah, I'll go grab some replenishment, and then we'll be good. But no, so I say that with looking through the lens of creative marketing, right? So in creative marketing, I think one of the things that draws me personally and a lot of people to marketing is because you can be so creative. Granted, also recognize my background is at a startup where I can have that flexibility. Some marketers cannot, right? So take that, apply it to your life how you can as a marketer. But the technical, and another caveat I'll add, is the technical aspect of marketing, right? There's some rules that you will just have to play by, feed the algorithms, do all that stuff, right? But I'm specifically talking about when you're looking at a landscape that is saturated and you have that creative ability to say, okay, what's something that we can do? And even if you're at a bigger corporation, you have some of that red tape. Is there even just the flexibility of like, okay, we do this traditional event. Can we just tweak it by inviting one new partner? Or can we tweak it by starting promotions a month earlier, a month later? Like little things like that take it out of that box where it's like, okay, this is quote unquote the general rules that we've always followed. So to answer your question of where I typically go from when I'm like, okay, I know that I don't want to just do this marketing campaign because it's what we've always done, or is because what other people are doing. I will still go to those conferences and I'll still look at the resources. I'll look at everything that everyone else is doing. And then I strategically put time in my day just to go on a walk or do something active, because that's when I find that my brain is best in creating new ideas. And I won't allow there to be distractions like leave my phone at home. and I'll just go and take 30 minutes. And then I try and synthesize and look at, okay, this person at this conference is talking about, let's say, I'll use an example from a conference I just went to. Shout out, RICE, Retail Innovation Conference Expo in Chicago. And Dr. Marcus Collins was speaking to the power of a brand. And he has a lot of, his background is in bigger corporations. McDonald's was specifically the case study that he was talking about. He has a great book as well. So it's all about like culture and how it really can change your brand perception, right? So I'll take something like that, take that discussion and look and say, okay, as a startup, we don't have the name branding, right? Like McDonald's, it is one of the leading industries or leading businesses in their industry. So I'm thinking through, okay, if there isn't already this microculture that is around a brand that's established, how can I look at the culture that we do have and the customers that we do have and try to apply some of those lessons that he's talking about, that he's learned on the bigger scale? So it isn't to say that everything has to be brand new, but there's the nuance in trying to take what someone is saying and then giving yourself a little bit of time and taking strings or pieces from different things. So I would say go to those conferences, like resources. There are so many good ideas out there that people are doing. Like I go on social media and I scroll, and this is how I learn about what people are talking about, what trends people are looking at. And then you can say, okay, this trend, why is it popping up? Is it because it's entertaining? Is it because it's educational? Then how can I tweak that and apply it to Malomo or to the podcast and make it so that, yes, we're playing within these guidelines of everyone, quote unquote, this is trending, it's going viral, everyone's in this. But if you can just be a little bit creative with it, then I think that's where you step out. I'll give another example of Duolingo right now. They're doing so much with their brand and they're breaking the mold every time that they do it. And now they're known for breaking the mold, right? Like I'm sitting here as a marketer looking at them going, okay, they have this silly little mascot that they're applying the viral trends to, but it's disrupting the industry enough that people are thinking of them now as a brand that they love to, be associated with. They think they're funny. It reflects, like as a consumer, if I think Duolingo is funny and cool, it reflects that I'm funny and cool, right? So that's how I'm trying to think through, where are you in outside of the generalizations, finding your target market of like, if the tweaking of the generalization can be something that really resonates well with your consumer, then you've done it, right? You've done that thing where you break the mold just enough. It doesn't have to be revolutionary, because I think that's unrealistic to be able to have every single idea be something that is going to go viral if that's your standard, or going to bring in XYZ customer if that's your standard. But I think just being able to have that goal of stretching what someone else is doing and applying it to your brand so that it's not, quote unquote, within the confines of what everyone else is doing. Does that make sense, Casey?
Yeah. So that nuance.
Mm-hmm. We're dancing in the nuance today.
I've counted you saying tweaking, a few times, and nuance.
Give me another word. What's modify?
Yeah, all that though. But it's that subtle change. You can't just copy and paste what McDonald's is doing. And because there's so many differences, you can generally use that as a starting point, is what I'm hearing. But then that's where you unleash that creative side. I love the idea of going for a walk or run or something else that distracts you from it. And maybe your brain's still thinking about it, but you're not.
Yeah. And I think there's so much to be said about traditional rules and marketing, traditional marketing, right? Like we're at this space where marketing can be so fast in developing, because there have been marketers who have figured out the rules and the algorithms and the technology that we need to be able to enable marketers right now to run faster. So I have a respect for all of the confined variables that have played a part into getting to where we are. But I also know that marketing quite literally is defined by doing something interesting and capturing attention. Like throughout the years, that is what, when you boil it down, that's what marketing comes to. And it's crazy right now with consumers' little attention span and oversaturation to try and compete. So there's the whole industry of social and web dev and web design that you can get into the nitty gritty A/B testing stuff and all of that. But I'm more on the day to day. I'm coming up with like the things that excite me as a marketer is coming up with those new campaigns of, okay, we've done a webinar before. But I think when we first connected, I was telling you about a webinar that we had that was also a contest. So it's like, how can we, I'm going to say it again, tweak. How can we tweak something? How can we modify it just to make it a little bit more exciting, a little bit more out of the box? Because I know that if you can't do something that is huge with a huge budget, there's a lot of free stuff that you can do with just taking the time to try and think about it or bring new people into the conversation, right? Like the amount of times that I've had conversations with people at conferences or partners or even friends, right? Like I'll sometimes pull them in and just say like, okay, look through our website. What stands out to you as someone who's not in this industry? And it's almost like the, like the older way of learning, like when we were younger, of to really know something, teach it to someone else. And so I kind of like to flip that on its head and say, okay, I could explain Malomo to you. I could explain what I do with Retention Chronicles, but I'm just going to say nothing. I'm going to give it to you and you walk through and then you tell me your experience. Because it's also really hard to pull ourselves out of marketing for a specific company if we've been there, if we know the ins and outs, right? Like that's one of the hardest things to do is walk through the customer experience or walk through the gaining of the knowledge of someone who's brand new and doesn't know anything about your space. Because sometimes that's your customer. Sometimes if they're buying software, you hope that, they know a couple of things about what they're looking for, but not always. So you have to try and hit people who are brand new to a topic and heard about you through word of mouth marketing or some other means. And you also have to cater to the people who are experts and know exactly what they want and just need to see, okay, on your pricing page, you have blank, 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 and that's what they want. And then they're sold. So that's also another thing that I love to do and makes this conversation a little bit more practical instead of floating out in the universe of, okay, if there's no generalizations that we can follow, where can we go? Of pulling other people in and pulling in, like even our product team, I love talking to them because they, even if their main focus is product, they have ideas for marketing because they're seeing, oh, this is what we're developing for. This is what we should talk about on the site and all that. All those ideas, or they've worked at other companies who have done awesome things in their marketing department. So that's also one other way that I try and make this conversation a bit more practical, a bit more tactical.
Tell me about the webinar contest. How did that go? And then maybe before you even get to the specific of it, tell me about maybe that creative process of going for the walk. If you remember, like, do you remember how the aha moment, were you like changing a light bulb and you hit your head and the flux capacitor came out? Like, where did it come from and then how did it go?
I went on a really beautiful walk. No, I remember it. Yeah. So, and it seems like it was yesterday and a million years ago, right? So, but I try and journal as well, like to remember these types of things. Even just right before going to bed, 10 minutes, 5 minutes of just bullet points, like gratitude journaling. And I also mark like the downswings of the day of like, okay, lesson learned, don't do this. Or, this was a tougher part of the day. So
Don't go on Casey's podcast. That was
yeah,
a terrible.
that'll be
experience.
today's. No,
Yeah, exactly. You can just write it in now, don't even wait.
just give me like 2 seconds. I'll go journal that in real quick. So it was around a launch. So a little bit of context. Malomo is a branded order tracking software. So specifically for Shopify merchants, that's what we built it for, but also can work with other e-commerce platforms. So what we were launching is one of our newest tracking page creators. And so the whole premise of creating this was to make it even easier for someone to just plug and play on their Shopify storefront and just basically drag and drop, right? To make order tracking. So for anyone who's not familiar with that, when you order online, you get that order confirmation email, you get that out for delivery, delivered email notification. That's what we do. And so we were brainstorming, like I had a whole list, right? And it was just Mod Podge of ideas of, okay, how can we pull in other, how can we get people excited about this outside of just the normal quote unquote playbook that we have for launches? And so webinars are usually for bigger launches, usually part of that playbook. And so I was looking at some of the other ideas of pulling in, can we have like some type of contest, which you see brings in a lot of people, right? Can we have with like a prize, design contest, which is what we did. That was one of the ideas. Can we have something in person? Can we have like a happy hour around it, right? Like for e-commerce, that's not as typical as someone who's maybe in retail or in person for the majority of their work. And so had this long list of ideas and basically whittled it down to top 3, which were those top 3. And then specifically started looking at, okay, logistics, budget, planning. When do we want to launch this? We wanted to launch it quick, and we're pretty well versed in launching stuff quick once our product team has it ready. And so knocked out the happy hour in-person thing because you can just move faster when it's virtually, right? So part of reality coming in there, but it's still on the docket for maybe something in the future. So stay tuned. So then once I only brainstormed that list probably through like 3 weeks of thinking about it. And I do this for a lot of things in my life. I will just have a note, like the Notes app in your phone if you have a smartphone, or just carry around a notebook. I just like to keep a running list of ideas, and it'll be about specific things. So I do this with gifts a lot. This is more like a personal thing, but like gifts for people, because when it comes to that time that you need to have a gift, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even think about something. But if it's throughout the year, you're listening to conversations, it's helping you. So I do that a lot with marketing ideas as well. Business ideas too, entrepreneurship, gotta think through some of those things, right? So long story short, took about 3 weeks because that's what I knew we had a cushion of before we really had to make a call and start planning something. And so we settled on the design contest idea because it also would give us feedback of how people were with the actual product itself. And we liked that because it was a easy way to be a win-win for new customers to come into the platform, see it brand new, no like free trial, no commitment to payment, any of that, get up and running within a day, and then launch their order tracking for 2 weeks and see with our reporting how it did, right? So we liked that we could get some data and get people into the platform. So that's like the business side, the business pluses, right? Then the marketing pluses is we could get a lot of amplification through our partners through it, because on that tracking page creator, which if this is getting too technical, let me know.
No, that's cool.
You can plug and play other partner integrations in there. So it was also exposure for them. So that was like the partnership side of things, also a plus. And then the creative side is a lot of our branding, like our personal Malomo brand is all about customization and wanting someone, a customer of ours to be able to have the opportunity to make the whole entire customer experience what they want it to be. Because traditionally in this space of order tracking, you get sent as a consumer, you get sent to a carrier page, like a FedEx page or a UPS page, and that's it, right? So Malomo, what it does, the technology, is it puts the consumer back on who we're selling to, which is a Shopify merchant, put the consumer back on their website so that they're seeing the visuals, they're seeing the brand kit, they're seeing the tones, the color, the voice of that customer. And they're able to be there. They have a seamless experience with that whole brand of like, I recognize that this is the brand. They're sending me educational content. They have their socials. I can choose to follow them. I can do whatever I want, but the brand is intentionally showcasing everything that they have for me to benefit as a consumer from. That's really the key piece that we saw of it matches so well with our branding as a company and what we believe, and being able to just literally give people the reins of, we believe that there's power in being able to please your customer with a branded experience. So go ahead and create it. And that was the beautiful part of having a contest around it. And of course it's fun, right? We had prizes around it. But
what kind of prizes?
Gift cards. Yeah, just easily transferable.
Like Amazon or like
Amazon or DoorDash. People love DoorDash. That's also a fun little hint for webinars, just like, and it doesn't have to be much, right? It can be a $30 gift card to DoorDash and it's a lunch for someone, right? Like it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have this crazy budget. I for sure don't work with a crazy budget. And so finding little ways that can pull people in, right? Of like, okay, first winner, and we had like judges, right, internally, pulled, and so internally we got everyone excited about it. Of okay, who should be voting on these, and being able to have a like tally of whose tracking page is prettiest, whose is, going to generate the most revenue, like having different categories, all of that fun stuff. So it feels like a commemorative and special launch because you're pulling in so many different people. You're pulling in partners, you're pulling in people internally, you're pulling in customers, you're pulling in new prospects. And we let customers participate as well. If they wanted to, revamp their tracking page and all that stuff. Cause we didn't want it just to be, ruling out, the people that are already so amazing and working with us. So that was more on the like creative aspect. And then building it actually out was not dissimilar from just having another webinar, right? Like all you're changing is the promotion and you're thinking through the lineup of things and what makes sense. And the webinar was the winner announcement. And then we also go over, so it was a little bit less traditional in that we're not having a webinar to launch the new product. We're having a webinar retrospectively for a month later of who won the contest. And then the winners, top 3, got notified that they were going to be on the webinar presenting their tracking page, and then we would announce the winner. So they're inviting their teams, they're getting excited about it internally.
They're probably promoting it too because it's like brag rights, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's just something where, right, like we see a lot of webinars, and a lot of webinars are great, some not as much, but you can just tweak it to be a little bit more entertaining or a little bit more informational. And that's really where I see like that added extra inch onto something that's like right, it's bordering the guidelines, right? Like of a generalization, or like a best practice, if you want to call it that.
And that's just plain fun. Like everything you're describing, you're getting multiple groups involved, but it just sounds fun. And I think about all the people we didn't get into marketing to like do boring, repetitive copy paste spreadsheet, this, that. Like there was always that creative side that, we had the analytical side, but man, let that thing flourish. I love the idea that, I mean, yeah, it's a webinar, I guess if you could call that, but it's something else, it's, it's the Parsons technique or something. It's like a totally different thing. I mean, the closest thing you could say is a webinar, but really it's not. It's like a live unveiling on Zoom. I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I know as a marketer. I thrive in a smaller marketing team, or at least a flexible marketing team that gives the reins to do that. So I recognize that not everyone has that ability to bring a new idea to the table. But I think the teams that can do that, even if they have a bigger marketing team and are welcoming other opinions, to bring up, like, okay, I have this crazy idea. Maybe it's not so crazy, right? Like maybe from that crazy idea, you then take it 3 steps lower and you can actually act on it, right? So I think there's a lot of, like, I'm a big fan of just giving time for ideation, and that's where I find I come up with a lot of ideas. Because under stress personally, like if someone comes up to me and is like, give me a good marketing idea, I'm like, I got nothing for you. I need time.
Rabbits.
Yeah, exactly. Or let me open my list that I've accumulated, and then I see of, okay, it didn't work for this time, but maybe it works now. So like that list that I've talked about just having good marketing ideas, even if you have nothing to relate it to right now, just write it down somewhere and keep that note handy. Because again, sometimes someone will say something, like a friend will talk about a new product or something, right? And I'm like, oh my God, what if you just tweaked that? And then you have a whole new thing, right? So I often see on social, like someone has a great campaign, whether it's, direct mailer or me getting them too, right? And I'm taking note of those things because I know it's just that extra added level of intention of, okay, how can I spin this for something that maybe I could work on? And I think there's marketing all around us, right? Like, or even just like look at the brands that you shop with, look at the emails that you're getting, the marketing emails. What are they talking about? Why is that subject line making you open that email and delete the other 5,000 that you're getting? Right? Like all of those little things, I think intentionally trying to accumulate them. And if your mind works that you don't have to write them down, that's great. That is so not me. I need that physical copy or else it's out the other ear.
100%. And to your point, you write them down when you don't necessarily need them because then maybe you'll need them. By the way, I got one for you. You got me inspired with the happy hour. Okay. You fly your customers to Vegas for an hour for a happy hour, and then you fly them back.
Wow. I love it.
So they get home in time for dinner or whatever, and no one's the wiser.
If happy hours were ran like that, I think attendance would be like 1,000%.
They're like, "What? Yeah, 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 we're gonna fly you to Vegas." Yeah, totally.
Yep.
I guess the tweak to that could be in a certain location, a certain city, you pick them all up in a limo.
Fun. Or a party bus.
Yeah, a party bus with all of your ideal customers, but they get to all hang out with each other.
Yeah. There's a lot being done in that space, definitely, of just people wanting to have an activity together, but not being, like a traditional network. It's scary. It can be scary to network and just like have nothing. You have to go up to someone, right? Whenever I'm going to these conferences, you kind of have to give yourself a pep talk, especially post COVID, where it is so easy just to not do that. So anything that can make something easier or something more relaxed, like an activity or like picking everyone up and then you all just talk and giving people something to talk about, like a round table or introducing people, even like that, really, those little things take a huge amount of stress off of people who you're trying to get to attend those conferences. So that's also a nice little like event marketing, more specific piece that I try and think through. And I have a list for that as well of like just fun things to do.
You know what? You should just sell a SaaS subscription to your list. One time I did the wrong thing and took a page out of your book where I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna do a breakfast," because other companies in my space are doing breakfasts. And um, yeah, like 4 people showed up. So it was like the wrong thing. But I just remember there being entire tray, like a vat of bacon. And I'm like, "What am I gonna do with the bacon? I'm not gonna leave it." So there were BLTs out my ears that week.
Oh, I love a good BLT though. Oh, so good.
Don't copy, you gotta tweak. What's the hard part? You've mentioned you have a small team. Like, what is one challenge you're working on right now? And you're like, "Challenge, I see you."
Yeah, great question. So right now, currently in the creative space, it's actually more of that event marketing. So that's something that I'm very excited about and in the ideation stage currently. I think what's hard about that is exactly what you just said, the attendance. But hopefully with trying to have new elements to bring people in, and I'm not going to share quite yet what I'm thinking.
Whoa, that's like
It's a little teaser. I know.
nobody actually listens to this podcast. You can share it.
I know that's not true, so but I love it. It's more just the time frame of when it'll happen. I can't commit to it quite yet.
What's it rhyme with?
It's in the field though of what we're talking about. So, event marketing is something that I know a lot of people are just in our industry trying to figure out, and obviously tougher question just because it is the barrier of entry is higher than a virtual event because people can't just tune in and listen through their laptop, have the video off, right? Be a little bit disengaged. But there's also the advantage of that where if you can find the people who want that connection in person and have the time or will make the time, then you'll have a great room of people who will want to be interacting and networking, but also casually just having fun, right? And being able to do an activity or try a new food. So that's one thing that I'm in the creative field I'm tackling right now. I will go into a little bit more of the technical side of things, and that's SEO. I have learned the hard lesson of how much SEO matters, so I will never get off of the high horse of trying to master that.
I hate SEO. Do you know, like, I actually have forbidden future guests on this show from ever talking about SEO. I had Rand Fishkin on, and I was like, that's the capstone project. No more, never again. But it sounds like you can't ignore it, though. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And that's pretty much the only thing that I'm touching on, because it feels like that is a huge part of our marketing right now is SEO. And it is also more technical. Of course, it it has to be. That's why it's literally optimization. So I will say that in the creative realm, that's where I find the flexibility, the excitement around being able to do XYZ, because it's inherently flexible, right? It's inherently able to be creative. But I'll give a shout out to some of those technical performance marketers.
It's more human too, right? It's the human side.
Yes. Way more human side. And then only other thing that I'll touch upon for being like a big project is with Retention Chronicles specifically, just getting more amazing guests on the podcast. That's always the goal, but also doing a bit more on the social side with that, and really capitalizing on the momentum that we're seeing. And so that has been a fun challenge, because it is a different type of marketing, because it is, at least the way I'm looking at it right now, going to be way more inherent on social. And so social media marketing, oh my God, it's a whole different ballgame, right? Like, I have so much respect for people on social. I used to think that I wanted to be full-time social marketer. That is just not the case
Yeah,
anymore.
hell no.
Yeah, it is hard. So I also say that to anyone who's in that field or doesn't fully understand what that field is, try it out, because it is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of rules and regulations and all that fun stuff to capture people's attention, that bleed into creative marketing. But that's also something that I know I am, as a marketer right now, not extremely well versed in. Right now, we post for consistency, and we post mostly for our partners, but and some customers, some prospects, but there's a lot of thought leadership that goes on like LinkedIn specifically, that we're in that community for. But actually marketing the podcast, I'm really excited for on the podcast.
Hell yeah.
Stay tuned for that.
We could talk. We'll have you back and talk just podcasting for a whole
Yeah.
nother hour, right? Just podcast left and right. Well, my next question really is like, who are you? Who are you? Like, take me back in time. Little Mariah days. Did you know growing up you're going to be a marketing leader, brainstorming, writing down cool ideas and gifts and all sorts of things in your notepad, like, and then teaching people on multiple. I mean, you have multiple podcasts. So, like, what was it like growing up? You?
Yeah, definitely did not foresee this in my future. So a little bit of background: born and raised in New Jersey. My parents are both Canadian, so I'm actually a dual citizen, which is fun.
Okay, because see, I saw a little Jersey Shore in you, and then I haven't heard the A yet though, no.
I don't have the Canadian accent. Nope. The rest of my extended family who's still in Canada, 1,000%. Maybe sometimes when we go up and visit, it comes out once or twice.
Well,
But
shout out to them up there.
yeah, there you go, eh? But it very much shows up more, in my extended family, and then my parents a bit as well. So
Nice.
like one little difference is pasta. Most Americans, pasta is what most Canadians, my whole family,
What do you call it?
pasta. Oh, please. I grew up with friends in Jersey. They made sure I said it the correct way.
They're like, dude, we can't hang out if you keep calling it pasta.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we're gonna ditch you if you're not with the times, okay? But no, seriously, so grew up right by the beach. Great little small town, Fairhaven, shout it out. So I very much thought my whole life I was going to go into healthcare. My mother is a doctor and my father's an engineer. So STEM heavy household. And my sister and my brother both took after them. And for a while, I was taking after my mother as well. So I formally studied neuroscience in undergrad. So yes, great time. And obviously it bleeds into marketing so much, right? That's why I very, very much appreciate consumer buying habits and how people interact. And one of my favorite things about neuroscience, or just psychology in general, is there will never be a time and a place or a job or a connection where understanding where the other person is coming from or trying to understand where they're coming from is not beneficial in that relationship or in that time, right? So actually having a science understanding of like, these are the literal neurotransmitters that are being emitted when you're talking to someone, or when you're, you go up to them and you, at a networking event, let's just use that example again, of you go up to them and you take that onus off of them having to go up to you. The relief and the neurotransmitters that flood someone's body because of that, it's just so powerful to understand, like, kind of, I call it the back end, but just like the internal science. And then also understanding the social science behind it all, right? Of like, oh, in a room, like I have a pretty good sense of picking up on who is feeling what, if someone's maybe a little bit more internal facing and they're a little bit shyer and they're not quite the extrovert that is going to go up to someone and just introduce themselves to do so. I always try and go out of my way to talk to them, because I'm like, usually they're the person that they're going to be interesting either way. They're going to be really introspective, and you can learn anything from anyone, but they're going to be the person who's relieved that they have that counterpart to someone coming up to them instead of having to be the person maybe to go up to someone else. So all that to be said, I, of course, worked in hospitals. I shadowed a neurosurgeon, and that's when I figured out that surgery and the medical system, medical field just wasn't for me. I've always been someone who had their hands in a lot of different projects, a lot of different areas of life, grew up playing pretty much every single sport that you could play, but was also musically trained, piano and guitar, but also was super crafty and like going to knitting club at the local library. So just kind of all over the map in terms of pursuits. And so when I formally went and shadowed that neurosurgeon, I figured out that it would be too specialized of an industry for me to feel fulfilled in. I still 1,000% believe that it is the most powerful thing to be able to be a doctor and a surgeon, and be able to save people's lives in any facet of the healthcare industry, honestly. But I just know I had that like freak out pivot moment where I was like, I can't do it. Like, and it definitely took a hit to my pride and my identity, because it was like all I was envisioning.
Had you been telling people like, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing, I'm going this way? Yeah.
Yep. And of course, there's some pride that plays into like, oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to save people. Like, you kind of have to have that to really inspire to go through the regulations and the schooling to get to be a doctor. Like, you have to have that internally. So it was a wake up moment where I was like, what am I going to do now? And so I had a couple of different conversations with a lot of different people in different fields. Was looking at going to maybe something that was a little bit more in the sports psychology side of things. So still tangentially related to medicine. And I was a rower as well in undergrad. And so I was like, okay, this will be my field for a bit. Was looking into the NCAA, working with them for a little bit. Another career path that I was also looking into was social work, or maybe teaching, something of the sort, like coaching, something in that influential, role model way of life. And then I found this program that was entrepreneurial in spirit, and it works to couple recent undergrads with starting technologies in the space. And so that's how I first got my I guess we'll say my toes dipped in the water of marketing, and just have fallen in love with it ever since. And it's especially exciting to be in e-commerce, where there's so many different ideas that are being generated, and I'm seeing like, okay, this person is doing this, and have that I'll call it quote unquote like all American dream aspect of starting your own business and doing your own thing or having your own ideas, like being really energized by that. So definitely a little bit of a hard left turn. But I'm so glad that I have now found myself in marketing, and I see the parallels so directly with, formally studying neuroscience and then ultimately ending up in business. But I'm not too ashamed to say, like, first tap in business, I had to be like business 101 via Google, because it was just looking up things left and right. And I think there's a lot of power to being able to just sit in a meeting and be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Please tell me about it. and kind of lower that like standard, I guess, that we have of like, you should know everything when you're in a specific job. I think there's a lot of beauty in not and admitting that you don't know everything. And it probably puts the other person in some seat of relief where they can share like, oh, I actually like, I only know minimally about it, but I'm supposed to know this. So let's learn together, or let's go ask someone else. Um, so that's the long skinny of it all with how I've wound up in the marketing seat. But it's been a wild, fun time.
Yeah, it sounds like a cool time. But honestly, like a good marketer is a bit of a neuroscientist. I mean, we're not operating on brains, but we're thinking about them a lot.
Dissecting the customer a bit. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And being able to see, how things are related, even if it's not, one step before or one step after. It's like, what's the whole story of odds are, like when people react to something or something's happening in the body, it's never a one case fits all. It's like it's a snowball effect, or it's a downstream effect of, okay, this happened when blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And marketing's the same way, right? Where you're watching that customer or that patient and you're seeing, okay, what is the story that they're telling me through their clicks online, or through their, reviews, or through their buying habits, through their patient history, like all customer history, right? All of it is so, so related, which is a great, great, great thing for me.
I don't know how you did that, but you just brought that whole thing full circle. I mean, that's impressive.
It's the podcaster in me coming out. It's hard to sit in this other seat because usually I'm in your seat and I get to fulfill the full circle moment. So
Yeah, isn't it fun though when you kind of flip? You actually get a chance to talk. You're like, let me tell you what's up, people.
yeah, believe me, I have to like consciously think about being the one who has to talk in a podcast because I'm like so ready to lobby it back over to you. So it's a really fun time when I get to sit in the other seat and then try and think through, okay, what's the story that, I want to, how am I going to craft this so that it's easily consumable in a podcast is a lot of fun.
It's funny you mentioned that next level of being a podcast guest when you've been a host. And if you ever are on someone's show and they're new or whatnot, and they're like not that good at it yet, it's like no problem. Like I'll just take over. And I don't need to take over, but if you need me, I gotcha. So how you been? Like you flip it on them. That's fun. Crazy. I've got one final question that kind of wraps this thing up in a bow. But it's a bit of a hypothetical question. So you see,
We live in the hypothetical, right?
oh yes, yes, yes. So prepare. Okay, get prepared. Knitting utensils down. Okay.
I've been knitting this whole time out of the camera. I wish that would be so sick if I could do that.
What, do a podcast and knit?
Yeah, yeah. Just like be like filling my hands with it, but that would take too much concentration.
Yeah, and then and on the microphone you just have like the
Yeah, the click clack of them.
you know how much you know what the sad part is, you would get more people listening to that ASMR than you probably do on like your serious business podcast.
I mean, this is a new idea. See, there you go. Okay. If you can tap into the ASMR market and the marketing.
There's probably another episode on having conversations with other people who are creative, and then you just kind of riff off of each other, because I think we've come up with a bunch of ridiculous ideas in the last couple minutes, and I'm like, okay, it's almost like a multiplication effect. Okay, so here we go. Hypothetical. You ready? Okay. Knitting utensils down. I may or may not have a time machine here in New Hampshire. Okay. So you come visit, you get out to Boston, come say hi, we get lobster, beer, and we use the time machine. Okay. It has two seats on it, but it's a particular kind of time machine. And you get a chance to go back and you get a chance to see and visit and hang out with yourself 4 days after you graduated with that neuroscience degree, right? And you get to go talk to her. What do you say to her?
Yep. So it's going to fold into some of the best advice that I've received and I will never stop sharing. I think with especially something that you've never tried before, it's really easy to walk yourself out of, oh, I'm just not going to try it because I'm scared, or maybe it'll be embarrassing if I fail. So I think especially for college graduates, but anyone, the best thing I would have told myself is no matter who else you're working with or whoever you're hearing in that industry is like quote unquote the leader or the North Star of a company, like where you're trying to get. Nobody has ever solved a specific issue, a specific problem with the specific resources and this in the specific environment that you ever have. Like there's all these different knobs that you could turn, all these different dials that make your situation what it is and make what made someone else's situation what it isn't. So I say that because it kind of taps into the tackling imposter syndrome and trying to really make sure that you're not discounting yourself from opportunities just because you don't think that you can do it or you think that someone else doesn't think that you can do it. So that is one of the things that whenever I see something that I messed up on, or I see something that someone else messed up on and let me down, or I let them down, whatever the case is, I always will fall back to that. And I've learned that lesson in the past 3 years or so of no matter what you're talking about, nobody's ever faced that problem like you. So don't think that just because someone else was able to do it and maybe you're not able to do it or you haven't tried it yet, don't take yourself out of the race just because there's some part of your personal identity that you're feeling like there's a conflict there, because you might not know how to do it and then you'll learn, right? Like worst case scenario, you get a failure and you learn. Tale as old as time, right? But best case scenario is you surprise yourself and then you get a bit more of that confidence. So that's something I would say I don't think it's revolutionary. It's not my thought. I know so many people have had to learn that lesson, but it's a constant reminder that I like to give myself. And it can apply to anything, right? Like even negotiations or even starting your own business or even personal life, right? Like if you're looking at all these other people who you think quote unquote should be in a similar life stage to you right now, they've made different decisions than you for certain reasons. You don't know all of someone's life and you never will because we're all made to be different. But that is I think the foundation of when I need to either receive advice or give advice. That is what I always go back to.
That imposter syndrome is so crazy. Like, how often do we're all feeling it here and there regularly, and then but assuming that no one else is, you know?
Yeah, this is where the social psychology is going to come in. The comparison game that we all play, it's so real, but it also is so inherent to our own identity that you think that you're the only one suffering from it or only one experiencing it. So I think the more that we can all just catch ourselves in that mindset and say, wait a minute, I know other people, I've heard this podcast, I've heard other people talk about it. It'll help us so much more down the road to just be able to shrug it off, or try and at least shrug it off, because we realize that it's not a unique problem to us. I'd also tell myself to maybe keep not drinking caffeine because that has done as well.
Yeah, no more caffeine?
Nope.
Dang. Switch to nicotine? Have you switched to something?
No. Oh my God. Fortunately, that has not been my transition. I'll just put that energy into knitting. That's what I'll do.
That's not your recommendation then. Okay. Knit. Don't do drugs, knit instead.
Yep. Do something with your hands, craftiness, right? It does a lot for our brains as well. Releases a lot of those good neurotransmitters. So do that instead.
Nice. I've been trying to learn how to juggle.
That's a great, I wish. That's such a fun party trick to just pull out,
Oh my gosh, right?
How's it going? Have you learned?
Right now I'm at 2. I got 2.
Have you been juggling this whole time that we've been on this podcast?
I have been juggling. Isn't that funny? You're trying to have a serious podcast conversation. Someone's juggling on the other side.
Yeah. Like, I cannot concentrate.
No, but like my hands are, previously they were dumb because I was like the soccer guy. So my feet were like, ooh, I can do things. My hands are like, we just write and type, But yeah, after a little bit of training, I guess you just wake up those neurons, you just wake up.
Yep. That's a great thing about the brain, and why I love it is because you can like those synapses, you can form them and they can also wither away, right? So practice really does make perfect. And yeah, it's great. Never too late to start, right? I just also started learning French, Duolingo. So like that's a fun little way to get your creative brain, like left side of the brain, thinking a bit more. So all those little things, right? I'm all for them. Juggling, great one.
Hell yeah. Juggling and speak French while doing a podcast. Let's go. Mariah, where can people connect with you? Where do you want them to go? The podcasts, the company, the places, LinkedIn, all that.
Yep. LinkedIn for me personally, definitely easiest. So Mariah Parsons. and then I can direct you to the best place. But for the podcast, Retention Chronicles Podcast.com, you can see all the some 122 episodes on there, mainly focused on talking with e-commerce founders, experts, partners, all that fun stuff. And then for Malomo, our web domain is gomalomo.com. And that's GOMALOMO.com.
I always love the go.
It's a fun one, right?
Yeah, it's like action. Man, thank you so much for coming on here. You are awesome. I can't wait to listen to your podcast. Like, you're a great guest. You're a super smart marketer. I've had a blast. I mean, we learned about, got tactical, the webinar, the contest, synthesizing, tweaking. We tweaked a little bit. We changed things over time. The journaling, the note keeping, all sorts of cool stuff. Thank you. Thank you for coming on here.
No, thank you. It's been a great time to get to connect with you about this podcast. I know we'll stay connected, and just have this conversation over and over and over again, because things are always changing in the marketing industry, right? So fun. So thank you for being a great host and welcoming me on your podcast, because it has been truly the highlight of my day, if not month, if not year.
Hell yeah. I guess it's done then. You should just like clock out.
Yeah, I'm going to go clock out and I'm going to go knit and I'm going to do all the crafts that I want to do, because it's so fulfilling. But seriously, this has been great. And I love what you're doing with the podcast. So keep it up.
I appreciate that. For those listening, if you feel the same way and if you learned something today, and I freaking know you did because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, then share this with one person or 9 people or 3,000 people. Doesn't really matter how many, but it's like what you say. Put what your takeaway is. Was it about the journaling or just tweaking things or not taking other people's campaigns at their word without making a little bit of a nuanced change in there? Like, whatever you learn, put that, throw it on LinkedIn, tag Mariah, tag myself. We'll have a little combo party in the comments. We'll have a good time. But that's thought leadership. So go do that. With that, Mariah, you're the best. Thank you again.
As are you, Casey. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, this has been a crazy cool episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm glad we didn't stop this thing 15 minutes ago when Mariah smashed our myth. But wow, what a great show. We will see you all next time.